BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you now from Boston, Massachusetts, on the road. BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram. And before we begin, I just have one quick announcement. This channel relies on your support, but never asking for any money. The way you support this channel is simply by listening to some more of our content, and we have completed our three-part series on the life of Fauna Hodel, which is available in the description box here, our three-part playlist. We did some things on the mini-series I Am the Night, which features India Isley and Chris Pine, as well as a book discussion on One Day Shall Darken, The Mysterious Beginnings of Fauna Hodel. All of that is available in the description box here. Best way to support this channel is just to listen. And on to our discussion about the Zodiac Killer today. The first thing that I would like to say is I was going through a lot of the ciphers recently. We did 4 separate discussions on each of the Zodiac ciphers, such as the 408, the 340, the 32, and the 13. And I noticed that there was a very particular commonality in many of the theories, not all, but many of the theories were using a particular method to try and solve the ciphers. They are counting the number of symbols, and then they're finding a suspect who has that number of letters in their name and saying, hey, look, this is the solution to the cipher. Like, for example, in the Z13, someone would look at Earl Van Best Jr. and count those letters. Hey, there are 13 letters and 13 symbols. Therefore, Earl Van Best Jr. is the Zodiac Killer. We can thank Gary L. Stewart for that. But what I would like to say about that is I don't think this method is practical. I do not think it is effective, and I do not believe that there is any chance that this really is the way to go about these things. And one of the reasons is very simple. It's that it is used so frequently. This is just like people trying to oversimplify the problem. And some of the other examples that we talk about frequently are also Edward Edwards, 13 letters in his name, and then you can see that that would match up to the Z13. And I really began to notice that people are doing this excessively. Number one, when we mentioned Theodore Kaczynski, in the final line of the 408 cipher, there are 18 symbols and 18 letters, we can really say, that have not yet been decoded, and people are like, Theodore Kaczynski has 18 letters in his name, the Unabomber, also the Zodiac Killer. Once again, I don't think Theodore Kaczynski is a very convincing suspect. And then moving on to some other possibilities. In the Z32, we were talking about Xenophon Anthony recently, a Zodiac Killer suspect, Xenophon Anthony. In the final line of the Z32 cipher, that one is arranged in 2 different lines. It has the same number of letters as Xenophon Anthony. Now, what you can see here is that I just decided to write down some suspects and just see how easy is it to just find somebody who has 13 letters in their name. The Z13 is also known as the My Name Is cipher. The Zodiac Killer, or the person writing the letters, whichever one it is, wrote out My Name Is, and then there are these 13 symbols. And I really just began to wonder, like, I mean, I counted these things out several times, but it's just, what about Donald L. Cheney? I mean, Donald Lee Cheney is a Zodiac Killer suspect. Does that not also have 13 letters? I mean, and then, so when you see the letter Z that is written here on this chart, there's also a symbol in the Z13 that is the Zodiac Killer symbol. And one of the possible solutions to this is, as we said, Alan Zodiac, know my name. It's possible that that Zodiac symbol is meant to be authentic. Okay, so the big thing to say about this is that when we're looking at these things, I mean, one of the other ones was, I mean, Hal Snook. He is the prime suspect in the authorship of the Zodiac letters in the hoax theory, as well as possibly a Zodiac Killer suspect himself. And I just began to wonder, I mean, Hal Snook obviously doesn't have 13 letters in his name, but then Hal is short for Harold, and I've never heard anybody refer to him as Harold Snook. I saw that in his obituary, and his middle initial was K. So Harold K. Snook Zodiac. The letter Z here represents the Zodiac symbol because that's a lot easier to type. So the next thing that I would just say about that is, if anything, out of these names on the list that you'll see here, I thought that Hal Snook was the most convincing, because the biggest reason is that if you are going to say that there are 13 letters and symbols, and that's what you're just supposed to do, M is featured in the Z13. M is what? The 13th letter of the alphabet. And then there's M is next to K. Bear in mind, using the eights as dividers, you have K and M, two standalone letters. So then I was like, well, then are there any Zodiac killer suspects that have the middle initial K? And yes, Hal K. Snook, and Hal is short for Harold, Harold K. Snook, Zodiac. Is that really the solution to this? I don't even I don't even necessarily believe that that would be the Zodiac's intention, even if it turns out that the Zodiac killer was Don Chaney or Hal Snook. I mean, these things could be coincidental. And one of the things we should always bear in mind is, number one, the Zodiac ciphers may not have any specific or precise meaning. The ones that have not yet been solved, it may have been, these things might just be arbitrary, they might just be nonsensical, or they might just be things that are intentionally confusing to keep people guessing until the end of time. The second thing is that sometimes people are going to be writing about these things on the forums, or sorry, not the forums, on their websites, on the internet, and just sharing their own ideas, and they're saying they might have an ultra precise meaning that can only be deciphered if you have the key. The best example of this is the Z32, which only has 3 repeating symbols, and then really it's like six of the things in there are in pairs. 3 symbols are used twice, totaling 6. I would love to do this as an experiment, even if you just get rid of the Zodiac killer angle, just to get a group of people, like a focus group or some type of experiment, like psychological experiment, where you would just give people ciphers with 32 symbols, and only 3 of them are repetitive, like you could use the C, the O, the triangle, or delta sign. If you were just to give them these 32 symbols, you could make up your own, and then you actually have a genuine precise meaning. Could people solve them? Because one of the challenges with the Z32 is just that unless you have the key, you will never get the meaning of it, because the possibilities are just, well, they're rather endless. Only 3 things are repetitive, meaning that everything else is up in the air. And as we said, though, the final line of the Z32 does spell out Xenophon Anthony. You'll see his name here. His middle name was Lusby, Lusby, and you could perhaps arrange that into the Z13 in a particular way. Is that really one of the ways that he wrote his name? I don't think so, but I was just messing around with the letters, and that's why it's written this way. And you'll also notice a particular name on this list, Art Lee Allen, short for Arthur Lee Allen. And this is, just showing that 13 letters. Why is it written this way? I was just kind of pulling stuff out of thin air. I didn't even bother counting the letters in Arthur Lee Allen. I had read previously that he does have 16 letters in his name, but I had even forgotten that. I just wanted to see, if I write Art Lee Allen, is that going to have 13 letters? Yes, that also has 13 letters. So you can see that it's very easy to shapeshift somebody's name in a way that arranges itself into 13 letters, and I'm sure that you could also add something in to make the names longer, because one of the possible solutions to the final line of the 408 cipher is Mr. Arthur Lee Allen, because the final line of the 408 cipher has 18 letters and symbols, and Arthur Lee Allen, as we just said, has 16, so they need an additional 2. Mr. Arthur Lee Allen is the answer, and that comes to us from Tony Polito, and we talked a little bit about that one in our discussions on the 408 cipher. So I would just like to leave this as a very short upload, and to say that I don't believe that this is the most effective tactic. Be very skeptical of people who are saying, I'm just going to count the number of symbols in a Zodiac cipher, and then I'm going to tell you somebody's name that matches up to the number of symbols, because you can shapeshift these things all around. You could mess around with Donald Lee Booyock and find some way somehow to get that to fit into the desired number of symbols. It's just, I don't believe that we're just supposed to simply count the letters and then be like, okay, this is our suspect because he has the same number of letters in his name as the Zodiac killer symbols. The most convincing one that I did think of, if we were to do that, as I said, would be Hal Snook, because you have K and M next to each other in the Z13. Hal Snook's middle initial was K, but I think that That is just so improbable. I mean, there could be a genuine, precise meaning to this, and we've talked about some of them here on the channel, and you'd have to go back and look at some of our uploads on the Zodiac Ciphers, but I would also like to remind you once again that our playlist on Fauna Hodel is available in the description box here. Excellent story about Fauna Hodel, talking about her grandfather, George Hill Hodel, who's the prime suspect in the Black Dahlia murder, the murder of Elizabeth Short, as well as trying to learn about her mother, Tamar Hodel, and all of the twists and turns in her bizarre yet incredible life. That's available in the description box here. And I will see you guys on Instagram for the bonus podcast, BlackBoxNed88 on Instagram. Short upload today because I just had a very short thing to say about the Zodiac killer ciphers and their meaning. That's all from me now. Until next time.